Thank you. So sometimes we have some glitches. This is the beauty of going virtual. Although virtual is amazing because virtual allows me to have people from all over the world. So today we have, oh my goodness, an eclectic version. So we've got Lori, and we don't know where Lori is today because she's all over the world. Lori, where are you today?
Today, I actually happen to be in Oregon.
Oh, there at home. Happens to be there.
Yes, but
And that
but for today, tomorrow I'm not.
that's how fast it happens. And many times we get Lori from, I don't know, we've had her from all over the wonderful world.
All
And
over the
then we've
world.
got
Yep.
Morgan here from Sweden, but she will be right after Lori. So we've got to be on time. So with that, I am going to talk about just the fact that today we are talking about relationships that matter, because relationships matter, and because in 2 days we have Valentine's Day, which is all about relationships, but we're talking about all kinds of relationships. So with that, I will introduce you to the most amazing Ms. Lori McNeil, Lori A. McNeil, and she is going to, first of all, get a journal or get paper and start writing, because when Lori talks, it's like endless. So just get ready. That's all I'm going to say. Lori, take it away.
Thank you so much, Marianne. It's always an honor to be the opening keynote for your summits, and you always bring such amazing people to the stage. And I'm honored to not only get to know you and to all of your amazing people, but to just pour into your listening audience and your watching audience on a regular basis. And that's something that I don't take lightly because I value my relationships greatly. So thank you so much again for having me. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Lori McNeil. I'm an international business strategist that specializes in media, branding, and marketing. But everything I do is about business strategy and relationships. Relationships. And the reason that this topic is so important is not only because Valentine's Day is coming up, but because it really is such an important aspect to really fully understand deep and wide in everything that we do every single day. And in order to really understand how we are building those relationships externally, it's so important to understand internally who we are, why we do the things we do, how we operate ourselves, what we need to do to understand more about the whole picture of relationships so that we know how we're showing up externally. If you've heard me speak before on any topic, I will always kind of try to drive home that there is such a big connection between the internal and the external. And so many people try to separate those two things. You know, you should be the same person all the time. Whether you're at the grocery store, whether you're working with a client, whether you're talking with your kids, whatever it is, there should not ever be a difference in who you are as a person. Now, certainly you have the internal tools in your toolbox that allow you to maybe show up in a different way or utilize certain tools in order to have those connections at different levels with different types of people. That is different. That is not being a different person. That's just simply utilizing all of the aspects that make you unique, all of the aspects that make you who you are. But I think that when you back up and you understand more about who you are, you really have a different perspective about how to show up and how to utilize your strengths and weaknesses and your internal tools in your toolbox in order to really build stronger relationships in business and in life. So let's talk for a few minutes about the internal aspects of that. And I'm going to tie this into media branding and marketing a little bit today because I get so many questions and so many conversations that I have about who people are online versus who they are offline, or who they are on stage versus who they are off stage when you meet them in person, and all those kind of things. So it absolutely ties in with what we are talking about. So I want you guys to really do some reflective work today. As we move forward in this new calendar year, you have an opportunity to make any decision that you want about who you are and how you want to show up in the world. So if something hasn't been working, time to change. But if you know that you need some changes, if you know that you need to do things differently, now is the time at the beginning of the year so that you can completely set the course for a different year and how you're showing up and how you're building those relationships. So there's a couple of key things that I want to point out based on conversations that I have with people very regularly. And you know that when I speak on Marianne Summits, I always bring you the most up-to-date conversations and information that I have been having in very, very recent times. So recently with AI, there's a couple of different topics that absolutely have to do with this topic of relationships today that I want to bring to your attention. First of all, we're gonna talk a little bit about who you are on and off stage, who you are on and online, and then we're gonna also talk about AI and how that affects relationships and how that's affecting the authenticity, the communication, all that kind of stuff. So let's talk about online right now. I get a lot of questions about what's professional online, and really truly there's so much that's shifted in our world in the last few years that I will always go back to what is authentic. If you know who you are, who you serve, the problem that you solve, and you are laser focused on those three things and serving your ideal client and customer, then you will attract the right people when you are yourself. You don't have to be somebody different than you are. Your ideal client and customer wants you. They want the real, they want the raw. They want to know that you are, a real person too, that has different challenges that you juggle, in life all the time. It's okay to be honest. It's okay to be raw and real. It's okay for people to see that you have all kinds of daily challenges that they have too, because they also want to know that you're going to identify right with them. You're going to understand their normal everyday challenges as well. So don't try to come across fake. Don't try to come across too quote unquote professional, thinking that people aren't going to view you in a certain way if you're too honest with them or too raw with them. There's been such a shift in our culture that has really, really allowed for and desired greatly that raw and that real. And you'll see that a lot more on social media with the BTS or the behind the scenes photos and reels and footage and photography and different things like that. So it's really important, actually, if you're trying to connect with your ideal client and customer and not just the transaction. And the reason I say that is that I talk to so many people who say, well, Lori, I'm super busy, I'm drained, I'm exhausted. And it's because they're working with the wrong people. A lot of people get so exhausted and so tired, not just from being busy, but from being busy with the wrong things and from being busy trying to help serve people that they really weren't meant to serve. Now, some people may say, well, Lori, I want to help everyone. I want to help. I can help anyone. I want to talk to anyone. When you are laser focused on your ideal client and customer, you don't get drained and you don't get exhausted from working with the people that you were meant to serve. There's a difference between you having the ability to serve and help those people and you were meant to serve those people. So think about it in this way. When you are showing up for the right people, you will notice it in your body. You will notice it internally with how stressed you are, how focused or unfocused you are, how exhausted you are. There's different reasons for why you feel the way that you feel. And a lot of people are out there going after the transaction out of fear and scarcity and not actually working with the right people. And then your body is telling you why. Internally, you're telling your wife. So are you able to build those external relationships in the way that you need to when you're not doing what you need to do, behind the scenes with how you are attracting the right people, how you're showing up for the right people? And when you are so distracted in working with the people that you're not meant to work with, then you are not allowing the space that you need and the focus and the awareness for the people out there that are searching for you, for the people that are out there waiting for you to show up fully in a way that only you can, but you can't do that if your focus is in the wrong direction. So I want you guys to think about this, like I said, deep and wide. This goes beyond where are my clients? right? So once you've identified where your clients are, once you've identified kind of where they're hanging out online, and you're showing up raw and you're showing up real, then you need to have that discernment, and you need to have that awareness to understand that when you actually are consistent, when you're consistently persistent about how you're showing up and how you are putting yourself out there in the world, then you are aligned with the right people, and you're not just taking any client, so to speak, until until your initiative is up and running. I see a lot of people making this mistake, and then they get caught up in the cycle of working with the wrong people for way, way, way too long. And it takes a lot to shift out of that, and almost sometimes rebrand, sometimes change a whole bunch of habits and a whole bunch of things, and limiting beliefs, the whole 9 yards, because they've been operating in the wrong direction for so long. So this causes a ripple effect. This causes a ripple effect. So when you build a foundation, you've got to back way up and really do that deeper evaluation with what is going on with you. Where is your mindset? How are you showing up? How are you actually addressing these foundational issues so that you can be fully present in building those relationships online, on stage, with who you are, so that you can actually work with the people that you were meant to work with and not operate from fear and scarcity in that way. So once you've actually built the internal tools in your toolbox for understanding who you are, and that goes beyond what's my personality type, who do I connect with, it goes way beyond that. It goes beyond understanding your own limitations, your own triggers, how fast you are at shifting gears when you talk to certain people that are different from yourself. You understand your own capabilities and your own limitations behind how much energy that you are putting out there to the people that you're meant to serve versus the ones that you're not. Now, does that mean that you aren't respectful, that you don't give them a few minutes, that you don't give them a resource that points them in the right direction? There's all kinds of things that you can do to still show up to be helpful, servant-oriented, professional, all those things. But when you have that awareness and you have that discernment about who you are and who you're meant to serve, then you're not spending the wrong energy, the wrong resources, the wrong time trying to help the energy suckers, right? Or the people that are out there that maybe need different help than really what you should be, not what you could be offering them, but what you should be offering to serve them. And there's a big difference. So I want you guys to really be doing some reflective work today on what you're capable of, right? What you could be doing versus what you should be doing. Because a lot of people get really, really mixed up with that, especially in this space, because they think, well, I like to help everyone. I can do this and I can do this, and I'll have a conversation with somebody and I'll help them and I'll do this. That's great, because a lot of people in this space are very servant-oriented people. We love what we do. Most of us love working with people, but you have to be very, very clear on who you are, who you serve, the problem that you solve, so that you can show up more fully, more time, more energy, more focused with those people, not necessarily being disrespectful to these other people, but just having that clear structure, that clear presence in how you're dealing with the different types of people in the world that you're going to come up to. And that can be in person at an event, or that can be online, or someone coming into your DMs. But when you have those boundaries, those professional boundaries, it will help guide you to protecting yourself, protecting your energy, protecting your space, protecting your time, so that you're building relationships with the right people. Now, here's the other tricky thing about that some people get confused about, and it's this. There's different people that come into your life for different purposes, for different reasons, for different types of and amounts of time. So that's where the discernment and the awareness comes into place. Are they in your life forever? Are they in your life for a season? And that's okay. It could be project based. It could be because you need internally something poured into your cup. You need to be mentored. It could be because you were meant to mentor somebody for a month, for 6 months, whatever that is. It's okay But when you are in that alignment and you have that awareness and you understand who you are, then you understand the differences between the different types of people that come into your life for the different purposes. Don't get stuck in staying in any kind of a connection or a relationship that is not meant to be and is not meant to be for a long period of time. I see this happening a lot because as heart-centered human beings, most of us, right? Especially we see a lot of that in this space. We think, well, I don't want to be rude. Maybe you've outgrown them. Maybe they no longer, serve you. Maybe you no longer are able to serve them to the capacity that they need to. And you don't want to let that connection go. But it's almost like you're trying to move forward in one direction and you have these connections that are still kind of pulling you back energetically in the wrong direction, whether that's business or personal. And remember, there's that direct connection. We hear about the influences of the people in our lives, and that's at all levels. So your energy and your focus is being pulled in different ways at different levels. And you need to be very aware of how your personal relationships are affecting you professionally and how you show up when you're trying to build professional relationships. So there is a direct connection. So be very aware of when it's time to make those transitions in and out of relationships. And you may not want to let that person completely go from your life. I'm not saying that you always have to, but you have to have the awareness of understanding that the terms of your relationship have changed, right? Those boundaries need to change for the benefit of both of you. And sometimes there's two or more people that get stuck in some kind of a relationship, some type of a connection, and it's actually damaging to all involved. Because you don't want to let go of a connection that you've built for 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years, right? But what you're doing is actually toxic and unhealthy in some cases when that relationship level, that relationship type needs to evolve and needs to change so that you both can grow and move on in different ways. And that is, again, both professionally and personally, because the way that you're showing up is absolutely affecting both realms of that. And so you need to understand what that looks like behind the scenes and externally in the world so that you can move on to serve the people that you're meant to serve in only the way that you can. So I want you guys to understand these direct connections when it comes to who people see you online versus who you are offline. If you're an amazing person on stage, are they getting a different vibe from you? Are you coming from ego? Is there something there that you need to work on externally? Is there maybe somebody in the background in your personal life that's affecting that? In a lot of cases, that can be true, whether it's a significant other or whether it's a bad business partnership. There's all kinds of reasons why people show up the way that they do, and they think that they're kind of masking and hiding it. And it always comes out in one way or another if you're really paying attention to people. So I want you to be aware of the fact that some of you might be trying to fake it till you make it, so to speak. And you can do that in relationships absolutely as well. And you're not showing up fully in the ways that you need to, even if you think that you are. So let's kind of switch what that looks like in terms of AI. We're all hearing a ton of stuff going on with AI right now. I'm not anti-AI. I want to be very clear about that, but I am very, very specific in how I operate and how I use AI in order to maintain that authentic connection and relationship with people. So the first thing is, because there's still so much with AI that's so new and people are trying to kind of, figure it out in a lot of ways, and which AI, softwares and platforms are going to be best for what they're trying to accomplish and all of that. There's a lot of people using it almost like a Google search. So the full capacity of AI is still trying to be figured out by quite a few people, which is understandable because there's a lot of things that are evolving daily with AI right now. But one of the things I want to encourage you is to really evaluate how you are using AI and if you're almost overusing it in ways that are not necessary. AI needs to be used for more than just getting tasks done faster. Yes, it can do that when you're trying to maybe write articles or do some graphic, work or things like that. I see a lot of that type of stuff in the online space. But I want you guys to realize that first, AI can do so much more than just get tasks done faster. It operates so much deeper and wider than what a lot of people realize and what a lot of people are using it for right now. But the other aspect is I personally believe that you should not use AI for absolutely everything to the point where people feel like they're not connected to you. Like they're it's not you anymore. You're not showing up. It's everything is either a chat bot or an AI graphic or an AI video or this and that. So you need to be very careful with how that balance that you're maintaining to where you're using it to reach more people with your messaging to impact the world without taking away that personal, authentic connection that is you. People buy from people they like, know, and trust. So with AI, you have to be really careful right now when you're building those relationships that people still trust you, or do they feel like you've stepped back because you don't care about people anymore. You care about the dollar to the fact that you've automated absolutely everything, and in some cases, unnecessarily. So these are all things psychologically that are going on in people's minds right now when they're trying to figure out a lot of this stuff. There are amazing tools out there that help you automate. I'm not against automation, but what I want you guys to be aware of is how much can you automate that makes sense, and how much do you still need to show up for people to where they know it's you, right? And it's not just an AI video or something where they're not actually talking with you. So be very, very aware of that. The other thing is that you can still very much tell in most cases whether or not it's an AI graphic or not, whether or not it's been put together with AI, whether or not it's been written with AI. So there's a lot of people that are trying to humanize it, right, in the writing, and there's tools for that. And that's great, but you just want to still make sure that it's you, it's your voice, it's authentic, and that people feel and know that it's still you showing up, and that you're not automating absolutely everything to the point where, like, I don't want to build a relationship with a robot, right? That's what I hear. I want to make sure that I'm talking to a person. When I make to be aware of is how much can you automate that makes sense, and how much do you still need to show up for people to where they know it's you, right? And it's not just an AI video or something where they're not actually talking with you. So be very, very aware of that. The other thing is that you can still very much tell in most cases whether or not it's an AI graphic or not, whether or not it's been put together with AI, whether or not it's been written with AI. So there's a lot of people that are trying to humanize it, right, in the writing, and there's tools for that. And that's great, but you just want to still make sure that it's you, it's your voice, it's authentic, and that people feel and know that it's still you showing up, and that you're not automating absolutely everything to the point where it's like, I don't want to build a relationship with a robot, right? That's what I hear. I want to make sure that I'm talking to a person. When I make a call, there's a lot of people that are like, I still want to talk to a human. I don't want to, do all these prompts. And so you have to be really aware of what your customer service, what you is act and that experience is actually resulting in. When people come into your funnel, when people come into your world, what's their overall experience with you? And do they feel like they actually have true connection, or can they just Google whatever their problem is and try to solve it themselves? Or are you actually showing up for them and guiding them through that process and coaching them through that process, or helping them solve that problem? So we have to be very aware of that balance, I think. AI is here to stay, whether you like it or not. But when you learn what works for you, and just like with social media, just like with a lot of other stuff that I talk about, what works for you is going to be different than from somebody else. So don't think that, oh, this person over here is maybe also in the health coaching space and this is working really well for them, so it must work well for me. That's not necessarily true, because who you are and who you show up in the world and how people connect with you is very different from anybody else. So the systems and processes that they're using to put in place in that regard may or may not be the systems and processes that you need to use. You may not have the same target audience. So I want you to be very aware of that. Just because you work in the same industry as someone else doesn't necessarily mean that you need to show up that way on camera or on social media or use AI in a certain way or speak a certain way on stage, whatever that is. You are building raw, authentic relationships that is you. And that's your superpower that nobody and no robot and no system can ever take away from you. So as you move forward in this very fast-paced year of the horse, I want you guys to really make sure that you are showing up authentically and everything that you were created to be in only a way that you can. I want you to dig deep into the internal aspects of everything that you are, be very honest with yourself, and all of those influences, all of those distractions, all of those decisions that maybe you're working with the wrong people, and how can you actually show up and create that space to be focused and working and building relationships with the right people. And then what does that look like? You know, we've heard it several times that if you surround yourself with 5 millionaires, guess who's going to be the sixth one? That power of influence is strong, whether it's positive or negative. So as you move forward in this year, I want you guys to really be discerning on the clients and the customers that you work with. And I want you to be very discerning with who you allow into your personal circle and how you are moving forward and building your business relationships. It is all about building relationships. And again, that internal and external factors absolutely affect each other. And you need to be very honest with yourself about that, because a lot of you are showing up in ways that you think that nobody notices, but I promise they're noticing way more than you realize. So what do you need to do to clean house and to show up differently and to build your internal toolbox so that you can solve external problems in only a way that you can? And with that, Marianne, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much, as always, Lori. Very enlightening. I told you, get a pen, paper. When Lori speaks, pens go like this. And I usually have like a ton of notes as well. So hang on, let me just fix this. Excellent. Thank you so much, Lori. I know you have a crazy busy day, so I super appreciate your time as always. Lori is my official opener. She opens pretty much for 99.9. I think one time you couldn't open because you were flying. You were actually in the air. So the internet wasn't, we didn't have internet in airplanes at that point in time.
I would have done it had I been able to. I would have.
And she has come to us from all kinds of quiet corners and hotels where she's at, which is so awesome. Anyhow, thank you so much, Lori. As always, very enlightening. Have yourself a beautiful day. I know you have to run, so I don't want to keep you, but thank you.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the event. Have a great day.
Have a beautiful day. And with that, I bring you my next amazing speaker, Maria Dolores. She was awarded the Ambassador of World Peace in 2023, and the rest I will let her speak to you about herself. So I look forward to this. Maria, take the stage.
Thank you. And thank you so much, Marianne. I'm really happy to be here and to talk and to share this with the audience. Yes, my name is Maria Dolores. I help leaders to remember people's rights and responsibilities and how we lessen hate and disrespect and to increase dignity and maturity. So my background is with human resources and leadership. I've been working in the Swedish steel industry, forest industry, at the Swedish prosecution authorities, and also I worked with funerals. I've casketed 3,000 people and I attended more than 1,500 funerals. So when I talk about dignity and equal human worth, that's where I'm coming from, that we are born with rights and we all mature. So I really am looking forward to this moment with you. Have you ever felt really, really scared? Yeah. My ex-husband was stalking me during our divorce, and the world became very, very small. I was really scared. And so I woke up in panic 3 in the morning, and I didn't understand why. And people around me thought that I was crazy. Even my father asked me, how are you doing? And they didn't see or understand what was happening. I had cars following me, and he seemed to know everything about me and my life. I pleaded to my ex-husband for mediation and for peace, but he was really standing firm in hate. Later, in 2015, he died of a brain tumor. And then it became very apparent to all of us that, and it was obviously a shock. And I understand better of all the aspects of why the divorce was so extremely turbulent. Today, no, it's been a decade. So today I feel safe, but I also see oppression on all levels. I see how we can be so oppressive to ourselves and in the relationship to ourselves, how we're talking bad to ourselves and saying, you can't do that. And the voices that we have in our head, natural voices, and how we also are oppressive towards one another online or in relationships and talking bad to each other. I also see the same theme in countries, within countries, and also between countries. And that's why I take a stand for it, that we are born with rights. You have the right to your physical mental health. You have rights in your relationships. And we also collectively, as a species, we also have rights. But with rights, we should also have responsibilities, right? So that's why I created the Human Constitution. And 10 years ago, I wrote a book, A State of Grace, Human Rights and Human Obligations. And that has evolved to the Human Constitution. So what is the Human Constitution? These 7 principles. The first principles is addressing the relationship to ourselves, exactly like Lori were talking about here earlier. The relationship to ourselves, that you have the rights and responsibility for your body, your emotions, and your thoughts, but also to try to mature with our emotions and to strive for more peaceful emotions. And with our thoughts, the responsibility for our thoughts, and to broaden perspectives in how we perceive another and how we perceive ourselves. And to, whenever we are in pain, whenever we are in discomfort in our emotions and in our thoughts, there's always an indication of there are other aspects to be discovered. And that's how we can open up to the relationship, both with ourselves and one another. So that's the first 3 principles of the Human Constitution: body, emotion, and thought, rights and responsibilities. And the coming 3 is about power, communication, and life, that you have the right to your personal power, and you have a responsibility in how you act and interact with others. So what do I mean with power? And power is about how we treat ourselves and one another, how we spend our time, how we spend our energy. What Lori was talking about earlier, that the people you are associating with is also influencing you. So the power on how you spend your time, your energy, but it's more than that. It's also about your monetary power, that you have the right to your money. And you also have a responsibility in how you spend your money, how you use your money, and trying to be mindful about what you are buying, because it matters in the relationship with the money and with other people, and what you spend money on. And then it's also it's 3 parts of power. And so the third part, in the first is regarding power. It's your personal power, your time, your energy. Then it's the monetary power, and then it's your physical power. And as we mature, we also, it's about to mature in our sexual power, how we act and how we interact with each other. And obviously the theme of this is relationships that matters. So it matters how you show up and how you act, how you use your power, how you use your money, how you use your physical power and your intimacy with others, but also how you spend your time and your energy. So to repeat, it's about your body, emotion, and thoughts. It's about your power. And the 5th principle is about communication, that you have the right in your expression. You have the right in your freedom of speech, but you also have a responsibility in what you express. And it's about to strive with dignity and maturity. How can we express more mature and with more dignity towards ourselves and towards one another, and how we can be more respectful? And I'm sure you know, and you can to think of many various different examples of how we, both the learning examples, but also the good examples of people talking and expressing with dignity, people expressing with maturity. And it's also about listening. With the right and the freedom of speech, we also have a responsibility to listen. So, body, emotion, thought, the rights and responsibility for our physical mental health, power, communication, and the 6th principle out of the 7 is life. You have the right to your life. You have the right to live with whomever, wherever, and however you like, but not at the cost of any other. And with this principle is also how we act and interact with others, but also with life on the planet. It's our relationship, which Lori earlier mentioned about AI and the beautiful potential of AI, and how AI is now helping us in our communication with animals, translating what crows are saying, translating what whales are saying, so that we could actually more and better communicate with other life on the planet, and which is connecting us with a better way in how we can be more responsible and work with more dignity in the world. And then the last principle, the 7th principle, is about our collective rights and responsibilities. Collectively, we also have rights and responsibilities as a species. I'm thinking of, 1989 in Berlin, and we had peoples on both sides of the wall saying, let's tear down the wall, let's unite. And I believe in the power of the human and our species. Yes, we have done awful things, and we can act very oppressive, both to ourselves, to one another, and how we can be oppressive as a collective humanity. But we also have the responsibility, and when we grow, when we mature and act with more dignity, that's really how we can change the world, you and me together. So if this resonates with you, you can connect with me here on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and that's why I believe in you and me. And I'm so thankful to be here with you, Marianne.
You still have a full 15, 20 minutes, so you can
Yeah.
keep
Do we have any audience to
no,
ask
there's no
questions?
questions here, so you can just continue speaking for another, you have a good 20 minutes.
Okay, good. Thank you. Well, I can go back to the 7 principles because it's really about the relationship to ourselves and one another and us as a species. So casketing 1,500 funerals, I've seen so much grief and so much various expressions of emotions and the importance of to make a closure and seeing all the different religions, both Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, Hindu, Sikh, and also secular ceremonies. I know the importance of to have a good closure. And usually it's people come and they are in grief, they are crying, or they are sort of locked down. And they, but there's all sorts of expressions of grief. I remember a boy who came in, and there was a young boy, he was 16, who had died. And his friend came in, and it was hate in his eyes. And I just acknowledged his emotions because I believe that we have the right to our emotions. And then when we move through the responsibility of addressing and to be able to feel whatever we are feeling, it's really important to because I remember also when I talked about when my ex-husband was stalking me, and he the really true fear is not to be seen and not to be acknowledged, and that we have we spiral down, and it's becoming inhumane when we do not acknowledge whatever we are feeling, whatever we want to express. I think South Africa, where after they had the apartheid, was trying to heal the South African wounds of addressing the wounds of the apartheid and having truth. I think they call it truth court, and for people to come up and to express their emotions and express what actually happened. And it's also what I see in other court systems. Like I said, when I was working in the Swedish prosecution authorities, it's also the same. It's to be acknowledged and to be heard and to speak your truth. This happened to me. And to just to be acknowledged. And that is so healing. So I believe this is how we can heal. But it needs, that's why when I was speaking at the World Peace Conference in 2022, the year after, I received the Ambassador for World Peace, as you said, Marianne. And when I was having that keynote speak, I was talking about that, the importance of to express our emotions and to make peace with ourselves, because peace in the world, peace outside, and when we're pointing to the wars that is going on, the peace is really starting from within. and the peace and the relationship with ourselves and with one another. And that's where peace in the world is starting. So, oh, thank you, Marianne. And that's why we need to see how, what is it that we have not acknowledged in our life? What we need to acknowledge and to say to ourselves, and maybe express, this happened to me, and to make peace with that. And as we move forward, acknowledging what happened in our past and let it heal and let it stay in the past to learn a lesson. I call it istima, when we are going from one perspective and we shift perspective. And what I've seen time and time again, when we go from one perspective and either something that is unhealed within ourselves or in relationships, and when we address that and we broaden perspectives, it's the learning, and it's how we grow, and it's how we mature individually, but also we mature in relationships. I've seen this also many times when I've been working with group and group dynamic, as well as organizational development. For 1 year, I was training leadership and working with groups and management teams about risk and crisis management. And you really get into the core of the sensitive parts of the organizations. And the group dynamic in the leadership and the management group, and how more mature leadership teams work much more effectively, and they can handle crisis much more effectively. And I think it's the same for us as individuals. Healing ourselves is also helping and healing effectively the next generation, our relationships, and in ripple effect on the world. So you matter, and your organization matters, and your work and what you are doing matters in the world. It also matters how you heal, how you feel seen and heard in your life, and the appreciation for life in all its various forms. I know that the interaction with animals can be so healing and rewarding. And I believe that's why we have the dogs and cats helping us, and also balancing the emotions that we are feeling. Because it's really emotional, and to have a security in your life. So this is Marianne, do you have any questions or any thoughts? No.
No, this is for you to speak. You have 9 more minutes if you like, and if you need to stop, then I will talk.
Yeah, let's have a conversation.
No. Okay. You don't want to continue speaking? Why don't you tell us a little about yourself and everything you do, and where people can connect with you, and first of all, where do you live? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I live in Stockholm, in Sweden. Like I mentioned, I worked with risk and crisis management, and I worked in the Swedish industry and at the Swedish prosecution authorities. Why I'm really passionate about our rights and responsibilities is because I see how we, as a species, and where we are right now, it's so fundamental on to be very clear about our rights and responsibilities. A fundament that is not religious, not party political, and not even an ideology. But I believe in that we can, if we look at our past, our human history, and all the shifts that we have gone through, each shift, we have always grown in groups. So right now, we are in a very interesting time in our life and in our human history, where we have representation from indigenous people and living in groups and the relationships in the indigenous people's groups, and also in various forms, agricultural, and the same, we also have representation in various forms of hierarchies and empires, and we also have various forms of democracies. And right now, like Lori also talked about, we have technology again, like so many times before in our human history, supporting and driving us to a local global world. So it needs to be we need a framework that support this change, supporting us as individuals, and in both our physical mental health and our relationship towards one another, and also with relationship for us as a species. And I really believe in that this is an important time, and the starting now and the coming 100 years, I believe that we can make a change. And it's about making more peace with ourselves and more peaceful relationship with each other, and to be more mindful, just as well as to unite and to listen more to each other as a species.
Yes.
So I'm really happy to be here. And thank you, Marianne. Hi, Vinny. Hi.
So Vinny has been gracious enough to come and speak an hour earlier. The whole time that you and Lori were speaking, I've been trying to see who I can fit in, because my 10 o'clock person's internet doesn't work. So, so I've been trying to message people the whole time. Okay, so thank you so much, Maria. And sorry, Vinny, you wanted to say hello to Maria?
Hi, Maria. Pleasure to meet you. Sorry, I'm last minute here. So.
Oh, yeah, good to see you. Good to see you.
Thank you, Maria. That was lovely. I know you're on a much different time zone, and it's probably pretty late in the day for you. So thank you so much for gracing us with your beauty inside and out and everything you do. So thank you so much. And welcome, Vinny. Vinny is Canadian. He's a Canadian friend. We're very international here today. Lori is from the US still. I'm from Canada. You're from Canada. Maria's from Sweden. We have Dan, who is also from the States later on. And then we have an Australian joining us later. And more Canadians and more US. So a little bit of everything. So Vinny, thank you so much for accommodating me and coming an hour earlier. It's probably better for you as well. Vinny is an ex-police officer here, and now he does something really cool, and I'm just going to let him talk to you about it. And I have made you yep. Okay, good. You can share.
All right. So everybody can hear me okay? You can hear me okay? Yes. I'm just going to see if the screen sharing, it says you are sharing. I'm not very tech savvy, as you can tell, but I will.
Yeah, you are definitely sharing, and you're sharing well. So good job.
Okay, perfect. Like Marianne said, thank you, Marianne, for having me. I just joining you last minute to fill in a gap, but I'm quite happy to be here. My name is Vinny Hick, and I'm going to share with you today, as we're talking about, meaningful relationships and relationships that matter, an angle that maybe you hadn't thought of. And you'll quickly see why it is that I say that. Can you remember a time in your life when life was so simple, all you wanted was a puppy? Think back of a time when the thought of a little furry friend would have made all the difference in the world. And I really feel that I got to experience that in my life because I worked as a canine handler. I had a partner that was a furry, four-legged friend, and I got to really not just have a friend and a partner, but I got somebody in my life, and it was a very meaningful relationship. And I learned a lot from it. And I will draw today some parallels between the relationship with that I had with Cash. Now, to tell you a bit about it, I spent 9 years of my career as a canine handler, almost a third of my career. Cash was a Belgian Malinois, which is a breed that's becoming more and more common with police dogs. Together, we served almost 9 years and accomplished over 1,100 missions. Cash took hundreds of drug seizures off the street, caught a lot of bad guys. You can see it in some of the pictures, the different types of stuff that he did. He was a great partner to have, found a lot of missing people. And I can honestly say that he brought a lot of goodness to my life and probably made me a better person in a lot of ways. There's something about working with an animal that comes in a natural form. When we work with people, because we're people, sometimes our reasons for doing things or our motivation can be different. With an animal, everything is driven from instinct and pure love. They don't care what the other dogs are going to think. They're not trying to impress the other dogs. They're on a mission, and their mission is to serve you and to be there for you. And their loyalty is unbelievable. And I think that by the end of this short chat, you'll agree with me that we could learn a lot really from our furry friends. I'm hoping that a lot of you do have do have dogs at home and that you're animal lovers, because I think that you'll relate to it even more. And especially with Valentine's Day being right around the corner, hey, maybe your pet's going to be your Valentine, and there's nothing wrong with that. Tell you a bit about Cash, how I got him. So when I became a police officer and wanted to try out for the canine unit, there's a lot of different steps that happen to get into there. And the connection between the dog and the handler is very important. They try to match the dog and the personality of the dog with the personality of the handler. And I can remember the staff sergeant at the time was Staff Sergeant Wade Jacklin. He's now retired. And when he brought Cash to me, he opened the side door of a truck and there was Cash just looking at me. And he said to me, he goes, you know, Vinny, he's young, he's immature, and so are you, so you'll be a perfect pair. And I was like, oh. And so here's his dog staring at me, and all I've got a ball. So I looked at him and said, hey, I got a ball. And he had this look like, oh, I like ball. We played ball, and that's how the bond starts and the relationship starts. Over the years, the adventures we went on, like I said, I learned a lot of neat things about a relationship that you can apply in real life today. One of the things that I feel I should point out also, how do we pick our dogs? Because when you think about your relationships, how do you pick your relationship? How do you pick that special person in your life? And this, you know, the magic dust and destiny, all those things play a role, I have no doubt. And they also play a role, I think, when we would choose our furry partners as far as the type of work I would do. But we select dogs based on their drive and the different attributes that we look for that would make them a good police dog. So keep in mind as I share stories that they're not like your typical pet. They are a working dog. They do a job. So it's not exactly like how you treat your dog at home. Cash never slept in my bed. He stayed outside in a heated kennel because he had to be used to the weather outside. And I can remember people would say like, oh, I can't believe you leave him outside in the cold. I said, well, he needs to be used to the cold. That way his fur will grow and he'll develop. And in the spring, he'll shed his fur. And that allows him to work in those conditions. So even though it's a relationship, it's not like the one that you have with your pet that might be sitting on your lap right now. One of the first things I learned from working with Cash is how to communicate. And you think of that and you go, you know, because that's important in your relationship. Communication. And you know where that came from? 2 little words written on my truck. Canine unit. I couldn't believe the power that those 2 little words carried. I would show up at a scene And when people saw that, they saw this black and white Suburban with the two words canine unit. And that was sometimes enough to communicate enough to stop the whole situation. I can remember going to assist where there was a local hockey tournament, and two of the hockey teams were, tussling it out on the ice. And then after the game, there was a lot of chat that happened in the parking lot. And, maybe, I think the local team had lost. And so there was a lot of huffing and puffing. And I happened to be in the area, and they're like, hey, can you swing by and see if you can lend a hand? And I thought, sure, why not? And as I pulled up with my Suburban, everybody saw those two little words, canine unit. And it just took care of everything. It was, yeah, okay, well, I don't want anything to do with a police dog. I've seen videos on YouTube, and it took care of the whole thing. And I always thought, wow, the power of communication. They hadn't even seen a dog. They hadn't heard a dog. They just saw two words. I mean, that truck could have been empty. I thought we could save the OPP a lot of money. We'll just get some stickers that say canine unit, slap it on some cars, and maybe that'll fix a few situations, just by showing up. But the power of communication, how we communicate, the things we write carry a lot of weight before you even get to say anything. And think about that in your relationship with someone. Whether you're sending them an email, you're leaving them a note, you're sending them a text, the way we communicate carries a lot of weight. And the trouble with the written stuff is you don't know what the emotions that are attached to it, right? You might think like, what was wrong with what I wrote today? And it's because it's hard to convey tone in written format. You think of it, I think the solution, I heard a comedian talk about this, we just need some new fonts. Imagine that, if we have some new fonts that convey tone. So you have a party, and Tony writes back, nice party. And you're like, oh, I can't believe he wrote that. And people go, what? He said nice party. Yeah, but he wrote it in sarcastica. I see what he's saying here. So, how we convey information. So that translates, it's very powerful, how we communicate, not just in written form, but in our spoken form. And when you think of your relationship, meaningful relationships, whether it's with your significant other or somebody that has a potential of becoming your significant other, keep that in mind. The way we communicate, you can't take it back. The words out of your mouth, once they're gone, they're gone. You can't take them back. So be mindful of that as to how you communicate. That was one of the little lessons I learned, like I said, just right out of the box as a new canine handler. I got to see my dog communicate in so many different ways. So let's say people see that on the truck. They see canine unit. Now I take the dog out of the truck, and that communicated volumes. I mean, the dog didn't bark, didn't do anything, but he walked with a purpose. Ears were up. He's eyeballing somebody. He could split the sea. Man, people got out of the way because they're like, I want nothing to do with that dog. He's on a mission. He's focused on something. And I thought, isn't it amazing how even just the way our deportment is, the communication that comes out of that? You are sharing a lot of information just by the way you walk, the way you hold yourself. Now, it's one thing as a police officer, we want to walk with purpose. We want to look a certain way. But when you get home, and it doesn't matter what job you do, what's your deportment like at home? Excuse me, because it communicates a lot. The way we use our body, the way we posture communicates a lot. And when you think of the people that are close to you, the people near you, the people that you love, you have to be mindful of that. You haven't even said a word yet, but just the way you walked in the door, put your coat away, and walked into your house. You haven't even said anything. Just the way you do that sure says a lot. And I think if we take the time to remember and to think about that with our special other people in our lives, in our families, there's a lot that could be learned about that. The Cash had a way of communicating. And then, I mean, of course, you ask most people, how does a dog communicate? Well, they bark. Yes, they certainly do. But as I've showed you, there's a lot of other ways that they do it. So how you talk, the tone that you use, the way you communicate. So a big thing that I learned that's helped me in life, in my personal relationships from my dog, is how to communicate, how to be mindful of every way I communicate, written, deportment, and how I talk. It's communication is the key, I think, to a healthy relationship. If you can't talk about stuff, everything stays bottled in. So I'm a big advocate of open the bottle and make sure you communicate. One of the other big things that I like to share, it's a kind of a neat story. There's a time and a place for everything. And that is so true in any relationship. There's a time and a place to bring something up, to drop the bomb, to ask a question. And think of that, the range from proposing, let's say you're planning on getting married. There's a time and a place to do that, to bringing up maybe a big financial endeavor that you're looking at, or big changes that are going to have to be made, or maybe you're going to have to move. There's a time and a place to bring up information, to communicate. And I learned that with my dog, knowing where my place is and timing. And the story I used to highlight that or to share about that was learning to do drug detection. Now, I want you to picture this. I'm training a dog to sniff out drugs. So eventually, once he's got the scent and he recognizes it, I now have, let's say, a bookcase in front of me, and inside of one of the books is a little bit of drugs hidden. So when I will get the dog to search this big bookshelf, at first I'm going to guide him with my hand, and he's going to sniff everywhere where I put my fingers. And we're going to go through the rows, and eventually when he gets to the book where I've hidden something, ideally what I want to see is a reaction from him where he, oh, hang on, there's something there I recognize. I'll encourage that because, hey, you found the hidden item, and he gets a reward, and we do a dance, and we play ball, and it's a big hoorah. Now, when I was in training, learning to do these things, you get another handler to hide stuff for you so that you don't know where the stuff is, so that you can observe your dog, and that's how you learn. That's why we train. And as we were doing this, I'm searching this bookshelf, and the dog is working his way up the shelves with his nose. And out of the corner of my eye, I noticed something between two books, like it was sticking out. It looked like American money folded up, like somebody had put a little wad of money. And, without even thinking, I just reached out, like I went to grab it. So I reached out. Now, Cash, who's searching the shelf down below, out of the corner of his eye, sees my hand going towards the books. Now, remember, in training, he searches anywhere where my hand goes. So natural, he's doing what he's supposed. He jumps up to want to go search where I've just touched. Now, let me tell you something. The top of a dog's head is very, very hard. And the bottom of our chin is also. I got the best uppercut of my life that day. When I woke up, oh yes, because he knocked me out. When I woke up, I was on the ground, two canine handlers leaning over me going, Earth to Vinny, how many fingers do you see? You okay? And Cash standing over me like, hey, what's the matter, buddy? Like, are you? And it was like, wow, what happened? And they were laughing, the other canine handlers. They're like, man, when you reached over, he jumped up to search, and the top of his head hit the bottom of your chin perfectly. They said like it was a typical Mike Tyson knockout. You just went down like a ton of bricks. And then I've shared that story, and people say, were you mad at Cash for that? And I'm like, no, like that's on me. There's a time and a place. I was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and I had no business being there really. As a handler, my job's to be back here holding the leash, watching the dog do his job over there. That's his lane. This is my lane. Well, you've heard the saying, stay in your lane. There's a lot of truth to that. We do it on the roads. Think of it. If you're driving down a 400 highway, multi-lane highway, and somebody all of a sudden just cuts into your lane. Geez, I didn't even know that person was coming. Would have been nice if they signaled, then you'd know their intention. Oh, they're going to be cut. Maybe you'd ease off the gas. Everything happens smoothly. But when people don't stay in their lane, they just come over. That's when accidents happen. You might buck heads. And I learned that the hard way with the dog, but that's true about your relationship. There's a time and a place to bring up something. There's a way to bring it up because timing is everything. And if you're not careful with those things, you might buck heads. And that can be very costly in your personal relationships or in your family relationships, relationships that matter to you, that are important. Be careful in how you jump in someone else's lane. Sometimes it's easier to invite them into your lane. Everybody knows what's happening then. There's a lot of signal lights going on. Everybody's aware. If you look at statistics, most collisions that happen on highways are during lane changes. And usually because nobody knew somebody was going to change lanes. So the lesson there, and like I said, that I learned from the dog in a hard way, is kind of stay in your lane. Know that there's a time and a place to do things. And I think that's so true in our personal relationships. I don't think anyone here would disagree that is timing important when you're going to drop some big news or you're going to make a big change? Absolutely it is. So keep that in mind. That's another beautiful lesson that I learned from Cash and from working with the dog is the timing, time and a place, very, very important. The next thing I want to talk to you about, and you're going to love these stories. That's what I love about this talk. I usually do this live from a stage. So this is a new experience for me to be doing it virtually. But it's full of dog stories. People love dogs and they love police dog stories. This point is trust. Learning to trust. And I mean, every hand would be up if I polled the audience or anyone who's going to see this, if you believe that trust is important in a relationship that matters, in a meaningful relationship. I'd even go as far as in any relationship, even someone you've just met. Maybe it's not a relationship that matters all that much. It's just a neighbor down the street. But trust. Are you a trusting person? Do you portray trust? I'm going to take it into a little bit more intimate way because I was working with my police dog. So he's my partner. We're together all the time. The value and the importance of trust. Here we are, and I want you to picture this. Maybe you've seen something like this happen. We're on the side of a multi-lane highway. A vehicle has been stopped for speeding, some type of infraction. The officers at the scene have grounds to believe that there's drugs in the car. Cash, my dog, was trained to detect drugs. I happen to be close by. I come by and it's like, okay, hey, I'm going to search this car for drugs. You know, we all help each other. We have different specialties and it's part of the police work. It happens together. That's why we have these specialty units. So I arrive with Cash. He's always excited to work and we start to search this car. Now, there's a lot of different ways you could search a car. You know, I like to split things in quadrants to make sure you don't miss anything. Depending where we are, I like to get one part out of the way. So we were beside a busy highway. So I thought we'll get the driver's side all done, you know, just so then I can move to the other side. It's a little safer. Some people would say, well, why not start on the other side? And there's a few different ways you could do this, but you know, you go with however you feel is the best. And so I decided we're going to do the driver's side and then we're going to move around and get on to the passenger side. I open the driver's door. He's sniffing the driver's door and right away indicates, I'm like, there's something in this door. So we start pulling away at the door panel and everything. And lo and behold, we find a bunch of drugs in the door. It's like, hey, great dog. I give him his reward. He has his ball. He's all happy. And now I'm in the car in the back seat. So I've got the back door open and I'm trying to call him from the driver's seat to the back seat. He jumps over to the passenger seat in the front and he's looking at me. And I'm like, come on, buddy. I want you, like, come on. And I mean, I'm the handler. I'm the one in charge here. I'm holding the leash, right? I'm in charge. I'm like, come here. And he is looking at me and he's not coming, which was kind of not usual for him. But it's the look he gave me. And I'm sure if you have pets and if you're a dog lover or any pet actually, I'm sure your pet has given you a look. Sometimes you're like, boy, if that animal could speak. And he looked at me and he kind of tilted his head a bit. And this is what I heard. He looked at me and he went, listen, dummy, I'm the expert here. This is where we need to look. And that's what I heard. I was like, okay, you want to stay? So around I went to that passenger side and we started sniffing around the center console and there's something there. I start pulling on the plastic and a loaded pistol falls out, just slides out. And it's like, wow, we have a loaded gun here. So now the dynamics of this whole situation have changed a lot. We've got a loaded firearm, you know, the two people being detained are arrested, you know, maybe they have another firearm. You always got to worry that there's more than. And now I'm looking at him and I'm blowing sunshine up his butt like, oh, what a great dog, right? You're awesome. I give him his ball. And now picture him lying in the back seat of this, I would say, bad guy's car, chewing a ball. I going, yeah, see, I told you should have listened to me, right? We keep searching that car. And in the glove box, he's got his head way inside and it's like he's trying to get his face inside the dash. Tug and tear and disconnect the glove box, and we find a loaded 9mm handgun inside the dash. Wow. Now, the beauty of the story is that those firearms were tested for ballistics, and one of them came back as the weapon that was used in an attempted murder 5 years before in Toronto. They had a victim that had survived. They found a bullet in them. They never got the gun. And now here was the gun. They were able to solve a 5-year-old attempted murder, all because of trust. Now think of it. I could have insisted when I was in that back seat, no, I'm in charge here. I could have insisted and said, "You come on over here, Cash. I want you back here." And he would have went, "Oh, okay, I guess you don't want me to tell you about this. Let's move on." But I trusted him. Trust is so important. That trust, it translates into everything. So I had to trust him because he's the expert. He's the one with the nose. Even though I was the one in charge, I'm the handler, you have to trust. And it's like that in any relationship. You don't know everything. You can't control everything. You have to trust the people around you. Trust is such an important component if any relationship is going to last, if it's going to be built on a strong foundation. So that was just a beautiful way that I kind of sat back after and thought, wow, am I ever glad I listened? Am I ever glad I trusted you? And really, why wouldn't I? You're the expert. And a funny story on that is everybody thinks it's, oh, it must be so glamorous to be a canine handler. Like, oh, wow, what a cool job. And yes, it is. I'm not going to lie to you. It was a lot of fun. But really, you're just a personal assistant to the dog. Because if you think about it, you prepare his meals for him, you drive him around where he's needed, right? It's not like they need me, they need the dog there because of his nose. I pick up after him. So when he goes to the bathroom, so I do his cleaning up. I drive him to his appointments. I do his errands for him. I go grocery shopping for him. Pretty much if Cash had learned how to drive, I'd have been out of a job. And so, he's the expert. You have to recognize that. And even though you might think like, oh yeah, I'm pretty important. Listen, the other person there is very important. And I joke about that about Cash, but that trust, that relationship is so important when you're going to build and you're going to build something that's lasting and it's fruitful. Not only was this fruitful for Cash and I because of that trust, we were able to find those guns, but think of it in your life at home. When there's trust and people understand that, everybody else has an opinion and we're going to trust each other's opinion and let other people have input, it's fruitful. People are happier. People feel valued. There's this harmony, and that can translate in the workplace, in the home, no matter what kind of relationship you're comparing this to. I think one of the reasons that I had this big bond with Cash is because I got to save his life. I got asked once, said like, "Hey, do you have any cool stories about like how the dog saved your life through a?" And I said, "You know what? I do have one." And it's funny because it's reverse. It's when I got to save his life. We were just beginning our training. It was probably week 9. And when you're training a police dog, it's 5 months. You leave for 5 months and you're with that dog 6 days a week. You're with them on the 7th day also, but you don't work as much. But it's a long, long training time because there's so much to learn. You have to build that bond, build that trust. We were about at week 9, I would say. And we were learning how to track people. Now, that's following human scent to find a person. This could be a bad guy that fled from a scene. It could be a missing person that got lost. The dog is learning to follow human scent. So in training, I'm with another canine handler who's an instructor. We drive and we stop and there's a car parked on the road and he says, "Okay, we're looking for the person that was driving that car." And what I don't know, or what I know, but I don't know where they went, is probably about an hour before we got there, one of the other handlers drove that car, parked, and then started walking through the bush and walked probably a kilometer or two somewhere. And I got to go find them. So, and it's a chance for you to learn the techniques that were taught to you and to watch your dog. And you work together as a team. You're watching his body language and the instructors behind you watching to make sure, you're using the proper techniques and that you're on track. So we start tracking and Cash picks up the scent and we're going through the bush and we end up going through this field and we're probably 1.5 kilometers in. And I can always tell when we're getting close to finding the scent we're looking for, like a person. Because now instead of smelling the ground where Cash was sniffing the ground, now he's got his head up high and he's air scenting. He's smelling in the air because the person's been sitting there for so long that the air is permeating all around. and he's picking up that scent. So Cash is pouncing around, and I know, okay, we're getting close. And there's an old shed, small barn kind of thing, and it's surrounded by very tall grass. And the person that's hiding is hiding in there. But in that tall grass, unbeknownst to any of us, was some old sheet metal used for roofing on a barn. And as Cash is pouncing, getting to the front of that shed barn, one of those pieces of metal, which we didn't know, it caught the inside of his leg and it severed an artery. Now he gets inside, the bad guy, the other handler's there. I give Cash the ball, and it's usually a big celebration. Hey, we found the bad guy. And I notice on the light gray barnwood, blood squirting from his leg. And I'm like, oh boy, obviously it's an artery. So right away I clamp down on it with my hand. And we run out, and the instructor's like, let's hop in my truck. The vet's only like 5-6 minutes down the road. So I said, well, let's stop by my truck on the way because I used to be a paramedic. So I had a really, really cool first aid kit full of the kind of stuff that most people don't have, stuff that I borrowed from the Ministry of Health. So we stop by my truck. I grab a tourniquet and a pressure dressing, apply the pressure dressing, tourniquet, and off we go to the vet. Now, imagine us walking into the vet's office. There's a little waiting room. It's full of, I'm going to say, mostly seniors waiting, with their cat. Burnett is there with her little dog Fluffy waiting for a shot. And here I am. I'm in my tactical greens, it's the color we wear. I'm covered with blood. I got blood on my face. I've got the dog. So Cash is bleeding. I've got a muzzle on him because he's going to start wondering what's going on. I kick the door open. I run in. I'm like, Doc. And the vet's standing back there at the back door having a cigarette. He's like, oh, yeah, that looks bad. Bring him in. Yeah, that's it. And we get in there, and the vet basically says, you're going to have to help me with the surgery. My assistant isn't here. Long story short, we're able to sew the artery shut. We weren't able to reconnect it, but, stop the bleeding, saved his life. He had lost a lot of blood. Now, he was scheduled to be neutered in a few weeks. So the vet says, well, since you're here, why don't we do that? He's already out. And I'm like, okay. Well, let me tell you, there's an hour of my life that I'll never get back. I can't believe I got to witness that. And I was like, oh, I was uncomfortable the whole time. The next day, so now you got to picture this. I'm trying to build this relationship of trust. I'm trying to bond with the dog and establish that connection. Last thing he remembers is catching a bad guy. And now he had to spend the night at the vet because of the surgery and all that. So I'm coming to pick him up the next day. Now put yourself in the dog's shoes. He woke up in a strange place in a cage, cone on his head, paw all bandaged up, no jewels left. And I walk in, hey, buddy. And he gives me this look like, hey, buddy, seriously? That's what you're going to go with? And I took him back home, and for the next 2 weeks, I got to nurse him back to health. Change his dressings, look after him. And I feel that it's in that moment, like I would just lie on the floor next to him and I'll just rub his head. He couldn't run around because of the paw, and he had the cone, which was depressing for any dog. And he would have this look in his eye, and I was like, it's okay, buddy, I got your back. And it's almost like he knew, like, wow, you were there for me. And I can tell you that over the 9 years that followed, he was always there for me. Even when we'd play ball at the end of the day, we'd be on the front lawn at the house throwing the ball around. I'd lie in the grass with him, and he had that same look in his eye. And he'd look at me and say, I got you, buddy. It's okay. Let it all go. We're going to be okay. Now, Cash has been gone for about 2.5 years, and he has left me amazing memories. He visits me in my dreams, and it's these little lessons that I got to share with you. Lessons about relationships, about love, about communication that I took with me and that I really cherish. I really think that that time I got to spend with him taught me a lot. And I would encourage you, if you have a pet, next time when you're hanging out, playing with, have a look at the way they communicate with you. There's a lot that we can learn that we can apply to our own life in our human relationships. Hopefully you've enjoyed that. If you'd like to find out more about me, I can be found at vinnyhick.com. I'm sure Marianne will have those details available somehow. Marianne, I think I'm probably pretty close to my time.
You are, and this was great. And once again, thank you so much for switching up your time. If you would like to leave your contact information, go to my Facebook page, and
Okay.
in the chat, you can put in all the contact information right there, right underneath where I'm live streaming the event, because people
Okay.
will be looking at it over and over again. So
I will figure out how to do that.
So this is Vinny's first time with me, and isn't he an amazing speaker, everyone? Yes. So thank you so much. I appreciate it, and I love the pictures of your puppy. And it's always hard.
Yes, yes. They bring so much joy in our lives.
They really do. I mean, honestly, we have so much as human beings to learn from dogs. It is unbelievable, and look how smart they are.
Oh,
They can sniff
yes.
us when we can't.
Thank you for having me. And on that note, I'm just going to jump out here, Marianne. I'll put my info on your Facebook. Wishing you a
Perfect.
great rest of your day.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Have a great day.
Take care.
And with that, we are going to move on to our next speaker, Daniel Bradley, who is also sneaking out of work to do this for us. So thank you so much, Dan. You're the best. And with that, I'm just going to say he's the amazing Daniel Bradley, and I'm going to let him tell you all about himself. Go for it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for that warm introduction. My name is Daniel Bradley. I'm right outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. CEO of Braving the Bright Side LLC, specializing in a podcast you can find on Spotify and Apple and pretty much anywhere you get your podcasts. And I'm also branching out into coaching, usually coaching high-level people that feel that they may have lost their step at some point in time, or feel that they may have lost themselves along the way. So I often offer coaching opportunities there as well. And I'm excited to be here. So thank you so much for having me. And, relationships that matter. And I'm going to speak a little bit about what I think is one of the more important relationships that sometimes people forget about. So let's just jump into it, shall we? A few years ago, I was lying on my back in the rain. Not metaphorically, quite literally. Flat on a damp October grass, staring up at the third-story balcony of my apartment. It had just started raining, not a full storm, just that steady, irritating spit that kind of soaks you very, very slowly. 75 feet above me was my cat, screaming. Furious, betrayed, very hungry. My wife was out of town. I had left for work that morning, and I had locked my keys inside. Again. That had become kind of a bit of a hobby for me at this point in my life. Lots of brain fog, running late, just distracted in general. Told myself it was annoying, but really what it was is neglect. By 8:45 that night, after clocking out of work and clocking in a few beers and a few shots, I stood in the rain in my chef coat, staring up at that balcony thinking, that doesn't look that bad. I can get up there. There's a voice that shows up when you're intoxicated. At least for me, anyways. It sounds confident, sounds capable, sounds convincing, and it lies to you oh so beautifully. My downstairs neighbor had a deck directly below mine. Perfect, that voice said. The ladder left by contractors? Jackpot. The rain picking up? Irrelevant. The fact that I hadn't even trained a muscle in probably close to 20 years? Well, that's just a minor detail. No big deal. I propped that ladder up. And it reached my neighbor's deck. Not mine. Just short. Didn't matter. This is fine, that voice whispered to me. I climbed. Rain hitting the metal. Metal hitting the wood. Wood slick with water. At the top of the ladder, I stepped onto my neighbor's railing, and the ladder fell behind me. Well, there's no turning back now. I reached up, fingertips grazing wet lumber, and my cat's face pressed firmly against the glass. I remember saying out loud, maybe this wasn't such a good idea. but I jumped anyway. Through my jump, I grabbed onto the edge of my balcony. My forearms ignited, my biceps trembled, and rain poured into my mouth when I tried to breathe. I could see my cat's eyes widen. Holy shit, I thought. I'm doing it. I was so close. So close. And then my fingers let go. And I heard myself whispering into the cold air, "Oh no." Time slowed in a way that I really can't fully explain. I remember thinking very clearly, this landing is going to change everything. If I survive it. I thought about my wife. I thought about how this would wreck her. And I thought about how this would change everything. And then I hit. I heard the crunch before I felt the heat. My left arm folded under me. When I tried to lift it, it felt like it was filled with gummy bears. That's what my brain offered me in the middle of all of this terrible trauma. Gummy bears. I lay there in the mud and the rain, staring up at the first quarter moon, spitting blood, breathing dirt, calling a friend from the ground, apologizing over and over and over. In the back of the ambulance, staring out the rain-slick pavement, something finally settled in. It wasn't just the pain. It was the weight. The weight of every small decision that led to that very moment. That was the last time I ever stepped foot on my street intoxicated. That fall didn't just break my arm. It shattered the illusion that I was in control. And in those shattered illusions, that's where relationships begin. Because here's what that night revealed to me. I had been climbing over people and responsibilities in my life for years, cutting corners, convincing myself I was fine, performing capability while quietly eroding integrity. The real fracture wasn't in my arm. It was in my relationship with myself. And you cannot build relationships that actually matter if you are disconnected from the person building them, which is me. Because here's what that night revealed to me. I wasn't just climbing a balcony. I've been climbing over a responsibility for years, convincing myself I was fine, entrepreneurs are masters of forward motion. If something feels off, build something. If something feels empty, achieve something. If something feels uncertain, well, you just work harder. And the world will applaud for you. But achievement is a socially rewarded avoidance. For a long time, I was the capable one. Dependable, driven, funny, motivated. But internally I was restless. And I needed validation. And when you need something from people, like approval or affirmation or attention, you are not connecting with them. You are extracting from them. And that's not easy to admit. But it is true. I didn't want connection. I wanted confirmation. Confirmation that I mattered. Confirmation that I was enough. Confirmation that I was winning. And here's what success does. It magnifies who you are. It doesn't just prepare you. If you are insecure, influence magnifies insecurity. If you're disconnected, growth magnifies disconnection. If you are performative, which I very much was, success magnifies the performance. If you are insecure, influence magnifies insecurity. We can go on and on. If you're, disconnection doesn't explode all the time. It erodes, which is so much worse in so many ways. It looks like nodding while not listening. Looks like responding instead of understanding. It looks like scrolling while someone's talking to you. It looks like impatience with people who love you the most. I remember one night after the fall, months later, sitting at the dinner table with my wife. No alcohol, no chaos, just dinner. And she was talking. And for the first time in a long time, I was actually there. I wasn't planning what to say next. I wasn't defending anything. I wasn't waiting for the conversation to end so I can go do whatever I wanted to do. I just sat there and I was just listening. And I realized something. Presence is rarer than productivity. We praise productivity, but relationships are built on presence. And presence requires internal stability. That fall forced me to stabilize. Not dramatically, certainly not overnight, but intentionally. There are these 3 relationships that determine everything else to me. The first is your relationship with yourself. Do you respect yourself? Not publicly, not online, not on Instagram, but privately. Do your habits match your values? Do your words match your standards? Because if you don't respect yourself, you will not tolerate relationships that mirror that. And you will accept misalignment. You will chase approval. You will overextend. Self-respect sets the tone. And respects the tone. The second is your relationship with truth. And this one's a tough one for myself for a while and a lot of people out there. Because truth costs you comfort. We love comfort. But it protects trust in marriage, in business, in leadership. Intimacy is honesty practiced consistently. Avoided conversations rot relationships from the inside. I was pretty good at that. Difficult conversations strengthen them. I was an absolute ace at avoiding the rough conversations in favor of just keeping the peace. But unresolved tension is friction, and friction slows everything down. The third is your relationship with alignment. There's a difference between chemistry and compatibility, between applause and respect, between attention and intimacy. If your decisions are driven by approval, you will build relationships that require non-stop performance. If your decisions are driven by alignment, you can exhale. You can breathe. And when you can exhale and breathe, so can the people around you. That's when relationships move from transactional to transformational. The fall didn't make me a better husband. It made me a more honest one. Didn't make me a better leader, but it made me more of a regulated one. Didn't make me inspiring. It made me present. And I want to take you back to that ambulance. Rain still falling, my arm still useless, my ego shattered. And the doors closed. And the ambulance turned right toward the hospital. I realized something very quietly to myself. I didn't want to survive that fall just to keep living the same way. I wasn't looking forward to the next chapter. I didn't want to just keep going, just to keep going. That was the pivot. Not motivation, not inspiration, decision. Decision to stop climbing reckless ladders in my life. A decision to stop listening to that voice that says, no, this is fine. It's fine. Decision to stop performing strength and actually start building it. Most relationship damage doesn't happen in dramatic explosions. One ignored conversation, one avoided truth, one shortcut, one more drink, one more ego-driven decision. Until suddenly, you don't even realize it, but you're falling and wondering how you got there. Today I can sit in silence without needing to escape it. Today I don't climb balconies to prove that I'm capable. Today I don't need applause to feel secure in who I am. Because the most important relationship that I've repaired is the one between me and me. And when you build that, well, your marriage stabilizes, your leadership deepens, your business aligns, and your presence strengthens. Relationships that matter aren't dramatic. They're steady, they're honest, and they're aligned. And they are built by people who are no longer trying to outrun themselves. So before you ask how to improve your relationships, you have to ask yourself something first. Can you sit alone? Can you sit alone without distraction? Can you tell yourself the truth, no matter how much you don't want to hear it? Can you stop rationalizing the latter? Because the most important relationship you will ever repair is honestly the one that no one else sees. And you build that well, everything else gets stronger. Thank you very much, Maren. I appreciate your time. I'm also offering a free gift if anybody's interested. It's a 5-minute relationship reset for high performers or whoever may need it. I'll give you my email at the end of this, but it's going to be just a quick questionnaire that you can fill out, really think about, and sit in and make those decisions and kind of really start taking a look inward. Answer these questions that I send you, and we can schedule a follow-up where we sit down and we go over your answers and we kind of see where you're at in life and where you're feeling frustrated, where you're feeling lost, where you're feeling left behind. And we sit there and we kind of figure it out and pick it out together. And the idea is that I sit there with you in it and figure it out with you. So if you're ever interested in that, it's a free gift. Come on by. Email me at bravingthebrightside@gmail.com. And you never know what this exercise might surface. It'll sometimes surprise you. Parts of your life where you thought didn't need attention actually needs a lot more attention than you realize. So, in closing, don't be like me. Don't grab the ladder so you can climb thinking it's going to be all right. We just got to get to the other side. Just as long as I climb over this, climb over that, climb over this. Because I guarantee you that rain will fall, and you will slip, and you will fall yourself to the ground. Once again, my name is Daniel Bradley. I check out the podcast, Braving the Bright Side. You can find it everywhere. You can check out my Instagram at braving_the bright side. Okay. Sorry. So I guess in closing, what I really do want to say though about this is that, when your relationship erodes with yourself, the first casualty is going to be, the person you thought you were. And that's a hard ego to swallow. So in that meantime, while you're crushing life outside, whether it be your business, your job, your work, your relationships, if that is fractured inside of you, it's all going to come crumbling down at some point. So, in that due time, it will catch up to you. And all I can offer you, really, is a hard conversation with yourself. That's the most important part in that relationship, is the hard conversation with yourself.
Isn't it true, Daniel, that you have to have a really great relationship with yourself first before you can even think about having a relationship with anyone else of any kind, really? Whether it's business, whether it's romantic, whether it's personal, whether it's family, whether it's anything. Can you also tell us a little about your podcast, what it's about, and what kind of guests you're looking for? And once we're done, if you could go onto my Facebook page, and you can actually, underneath the live stream, well, first of all, you can share the live stream, but you can also put your info in the chat down there, and then people can go there. And if they can't find it, please connect with me and I will connect you to Daniel. It will be my pleasure. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mary. I appreciate that. So Braving the Podcast is pretty much steeped in the idea of the podcast came along because the world can seem pretty dark and the world can seem pretty unforgiving. And in this age that we live in, it could also seem very isolating. So a lot of times society, when you kind of look around, it almost seems like everyone is angry. Everyone's fine with finger pointing, blaming everybody else, being angry, being the loudest voice in the room. And it takes a lot more courage than you realize to walk into a room full of shadows, full of anger, and be the lone bright spot in that, to bring positivity to a spot where otherwise filled with negativity. And that was the original idea of the podcast. And then through that, my own journey to sobriety as well, I've found other people out there that stories of steeped in not just hope, but steeped in empathy and steeped in terms of getting over the hard part of life, or at least navigating the hard part of life. People who have dealt with addiction, grief, just feeling left behind or lost, what that looked like, what that felt like at their lowest of lows, at their darkest of dark, and how they kind of pulled themselves out of it, and what that felt like, the steps they took to do that, and then how it changed them for the rest of their life, usually for the better. So that's most of the stories. I've have the absolute pleasure of interviewing people on there. And the stories don't even necessarily have to have dark spots. I'm interviewing people who are just doing good in the world, whether it be running an animal sanctuary somewhere or, just looking out for other people and lifting other people up. So the idea of the podcast is to be a bright spot, in an age where people are very quick to look at the negative. We're kind of surrounded by negative all the time. So, the guests that I'm kind of looking for can be anywhere from people who have struggled and pulled themselves through to people who are still struggling and still trying to figure it out. The idea is that these are real human stories that you can listen to and identify with, and kind of have a safe space to feel seen, to feel heard, and to kind of, like I said, identify with. So, anybody who's making a difference out there is a big one, but also people that are just people, just trying to navigate this very loud, very noisy, very sometimes unforgiving world that we live in, and what that looks like and what that feels like, and just trying to be a good human being. And that's kind of what it's all about, is still being able to bring positivity and bright light into rooms, into world that sometimes doesn't seem like it really wants it. And that's where, real bravery, real courage comes in. So, and that's, essentially the podcast. And, like I said, you can find it on Spotify, you can find it on Apple, you can find it pretty much on YouTube and anywhere else where you listen to your podcasts. I'm getting better at it. I'm 24 episodes in, just started the second season. So, bear with me, but I feel like we're finally hitting a stride, and it's people are responding very well to it. And again, I want it just to be a safe space, for anybody who's going through the hardships that life can throw at you, seemingly sometimes out of nowhere. So that's kind of, what I was aiming for with the podcast. And from that podcast, I'm able to make these amazing connections like Marianne and whatnot, in terms of branching out and hopefully making a difference in other parts through other avenues, and just, again, helping lift people up and letting them know that they're not alone, and none of us are alone on this, no matter how much it may feel, especially during these desolate winter months where it's 1 degree outside. Um, that's the biggest thing I think we all need to learn is, everyone's on their own journey, and the details may be different, but we're all on the same journey, and we're just trying to make this work. And sometimes it seems like it's almost impossible, and it's almost overwhelmingly stacked against you, the odds. But I promise you, that's not the case. And if you feel that way, God knows we all understand why, but you're not alone in that fight. And so many more people out there want to see you get back up on your feet and see you push forward. And your past, no matter what, your past does not dictate your future. And every day you wake up, you can take the smallest pivot of steps to kind of start walking towards that life that you deserve, first and foremost, because you deserve a beautiful life. And walk towards something that you never thought would be possible. And it is possible. And every morning you wake up, you have that chance. So that's kind of what we shoot for with Braving the Bright Side, is just lifting others and letting them know that we are on your side. A lot of people out there will hear your story, are rooting for you more than you'll ever know. So, and that's kind of what we go for there.
Cool. Why don't you take a minute and put your info and whatever else you want on Facebook. And I want to say thank you so much for taking time out of work to come on and enlighten all of us.
My super professional setup with the car here, so.
I can't see anything. It's all clouded, so that's perfect.
Great.
Right? I know. I've had several people bring in their laptops and go into their cars for one reason or another. People in the middle of travel, like it's been, hey, you know what? This is what happened. This is what entrepreneurship is all about, right? We do what we have to
make it happen.
And
exactly right.
Get shit done. Like that's just how it is. So anyways, that's fantastic. And that's one heck of a story. Holy smokestacks. Thank you so much for sharing all of that with us. I don't want to keep you away from work and make you late. So
that's just work.
No. I don't want to be the responsible one for that one. Thank you so much. You're the best.
And thank you so much.
Don't leave without putting your contact info and whatever else you have. Put it all on into the chat, and then everyone, you can go into the chat and grab it there. And if you still can't find it, just connect with me, and I will send it off to you, and I will connect you to Daniel, and that's going to be that. So thank you so much. Have a beautiful day.
Marianne, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Thank you. So this is, oh, okay. Let me see. It's not letting me go. It's not letting me become speaker. So I did want to speak to everyone a little bit. We have to shake it up a bit, as we typically do. This is exactly what happens with virtual events, is we have tech issues, right? And people, sometimes can't come in, and they can come and they can't get on. And this is just what happens. Tech issues are, gosh, almost inevitable. I've had tech issues where we got thrown off stage because all of my internet went completely down. We couldn't get back on for like maybe half an hour. And then we finally got back. Then I also had a fire drill because I live in a building. And it was a real fire drill. So you know what? You get a little bit of everything. It's just the way it is. Hang on just one sec. Okay. Okay, great. So that was, one heck of a story by Daniel. Gosh. Thank you. And there he goes to work. Yeah, I don't want to keep him from work. But I want to talk to you a little bit until some of my girls come on here with me, because we will have our usual APL Go hour, and I do want to talk to you about that. But before we do that, I just want to speak to you a little bit, because most of my audience is entrepreneurs, and we've heard some really great things, and relationships that matter is actually really kind of cute here. Hang on, I wanted to show you which one's going to show up the best. Maybe this one. Oh gosh, no, because I'm wearing red. Maybe this one. People that matter. So that's actually the charity that Bank Code Sherry Tree has. And so I actually am a level 5 trainer with Bank Code, and I was wondering how many people here would like more yeses. Would you like more yeses? And if you say no, I want to know why, because that would be interesting. Yes. So everybody here wants more yeses. Nobody wants more no's, and we don't need to go through 100 no's before you get to one yes. It doesn't need to be like that. We actually have a system that will actually help you get more yeses, because it will help you understand the other person who you are speaking with. So we're going to go through briefly the 4 different personalities. And so I'm going to hold them up like this. Oops, this one's upside down. We can't have that. And there it is. So this is, and I put them in this order, even though I can't hold them straight. This is my personality code. And now that I'm wearing red, boy, this red has a hard time showing up. But there you go. There's my 4. Oops, there's Rosemary. There's my 4 personalities. This is my particular code. And this is how you decide. So I'm going to go through this in this order, in the order of my particular code. Hi, Rosemary. And I'm going to talk about Bank Code in this order. So I'm first going to, can we mute you? Can you mute yourself? Because I hear an echo, Rosemary, please. Okay, can you mute yourself, Laura? Okay, never mind. I can do it. Sorry, there was an echo there, so you've got to get rid of that before we can talk. Anyway, so here's the personalities. So my first personality, my most dominant personality, especially when I'm working and especially when I'm doing real estate, because you all know this isn't the only thing I do. And this is how I help people get more yeses. So I'm just going to go through some of the key points with an A, because there's a specific way of selling and speaking to an A that people need to remember. Because if you do something different, you're probably not going to get a yes out of them. And I'm going to tell you something. This is the easiest person to get a yes out of. If you can't get a yes out of her, him, or whatever, this is your doing. It's because you don't understand them. So I'm just going to go over some of the values, because we just have a few here. I mean, there's so much more I could talk about all day long. But I am going to tell you that these are their values. First and foremost, freedom above pretty much almost anything else. Most amount of entrepreneurs are probably this code before they're anything else, because it is imperative that they have freedom where they work. So either they work in a great company where they're given a tremendous amount of freedom, or they work for themselves, because that's what their preference typically is. So freedom, number 1. Flexibility. Okay, you can't be flexible. It's going to be hard for you to work with this person, let me tell you. Spontaneity. Okay, I can't tell you how many times my friends, my team, my people, my clients, last minute, hey, can you do this? Do you want to go do this? Yes, we are spontaneous for sure. And the only way we can't do it is if the schedule's already somehow full, which it usually is, because we love everything. Action, which is the actual name of this particular personality. So because we're action oriented, that's why we're called action. We react like this. If someone's selling from stage and we want to buy what they do, that we're the first ones in the first line. We don't need any further explanation. We don't like a lot of detail. We see everything as an opportunity and we hop on it. So then gives us the next word, which is opportunity. And then we have excitement. Who isn't excited? I mean, oh my goodness, I can't seem to make this work. Okay, so excitement. If I'm not excited about it, it's really going to be hard for me to say yes to it. So that's just the way things are. Attention. Do we like it? A little bit. I'd say quite a bit, actually. Stimulation. Oh my gosh. We need our mind stimulated almost nonstop. We get it competitive and we like winning. And if it isn't fun, we're probably not going to do it, because I think fun is like my middle name. In fact, you know, when people go on vacation or they go to do something or they're going to an event, I always say, have fun, have fun, have fun. You know, not have a good time, not this, that, or the other. It's always fun, because fun is what makes the world go round. And image. So we're the people that will overpay for designer things, and we won't question it because we like designer stuff, and we don't, you know, we're probably going to put it on a credit card. We're probably going to go into debt over it, but yeah, that's what we're going to do. Actually, the next one, I'm not going to tell you about my next personality, but I'm going to go to the opposite of action. So the opposite of action is blueprint. And so blueprint is the exact opposite of what I just said. So here's the values for blueprint. They're much quieter people. First of all, a lot of them are also introverted, and they're lovely. They like stability. They like structure. They like the schedule. Please tell them in advance where this is. They want all the details. They like systems. They like following systems. They love planning. They have to plan so far in advance. Okay, well, let me put this on my calendar. Yep, this is on my calendar now. Yep, it's here. Processes. Oh my gosh, they love processes. Any process, and they love predictability. They love security. They love titles. They love tradition. They love responsibility. They value duty. They love your credentials, titles. Actually, I should have put my my bank code and my title. I do go by doctor, and and it's always the blueprints that are so impressed by that. And I'm like, okay. I mean, I did work hard to get it. I'm not going to lie, but it doesn't, you know, it's different for me. And I don't get upset if people don't refer to me as doctor, like I don't, but they would probably not like that. And I just want to talk about rules. They love rules. Whereas the opposite, they think rules are for breaking. We break rules all the time. And the blueprints don't like that, but that's what we do. Okay, so then we're going to talk about nurturing. So nurturing is the yellow one, and their values are relationships.